work for women, not against them. We need to mobilise in our communities and take on the politicians causing our pain. An NHS, free at the point of delivery, and an end to privatisation by stealth. We will continue to slay the giant of disease and have a knock-on effect to other parts of poverty too. The worldwide envied British NHS is a patient under the Tories. Underfunded, understaffed, overworked and undervalued staff struggle to cope with the vast increase in patient numbers and the extra pressure on resources. People are turning up to A&E because it takes over a week to get a doctor's appointment, longer in some places. Walk-in centres have been shut by the coalition. GP practices receive only 8% of the total health spending budget, yet they're on the front line of providing medical aid. Free at the point of delivery is a fundamental, non-negotiable start for a future Labour government. We must put a stop to this underreported privatisation by stealth. Andy Burnham has said categorically, with anger and passion, he will repeal the NHS care bill on the first day of the Labour government. Full stop. As comrades, activists and people on the left, we must also begin shouting louder and in unity in new efforts to save our public national health system from the pockets of privatisation. Our NHS, so precious, so envied throughout the world, we must campaign to protect it. If the Tories get to privatise it totally and run it like the American health system, we will have lost the battle, and Attlee and Bevan will never forgive us. Nye Bevan said, "The NHS will last as long as there are folk left with the faith to fight for it." I urge you all to be one of Nye's folk and campaign with all your might, passion and soul for our NHS, a free, public NHS where even rich men can be treated alongside the poor. We owe it to Nye. One of the most fundamental things we must do and alter on day one, should Labour gain control and get into power in 2015, is to actually seek to make a small part of the welfare state no longer needed. I am talking about a living wage and living hours for all workers. This will negate the need for in-work tax credits. The two, in my opinion, go hand in hand. It seems absolutely incredulous to me that I'm standing here today asking people to campaign for the right to a fair level of pay and a right to a full or part-time job, clearly contracted and directly employed by the company that hires you. How have we fallen to this? How have we accepted this as normal working practice? How have we let this unmandated government get away with sinking so low and supporting companies who treat workers like animals? How is it I am asking people to campaign for a fair rate of pay and work hours that will pay bills and put a roof over all our heads? It's because of greedy rich boys like Cameron and his ilk. With Nigel Farage, I never call him Farage, by the way. I'm working class and I wouldn't say garage either. Waiting in the wings to take Dave's mantle to destroy workers' rights, hard and long fought for by trade unions for the past century. The ball has swung so deeply into the employer's court that workers are being told 0 hours contracts on minimum wage and being employed by an agency are now the new norm. I am currently campaigning within Unite the Union for supermarket workers whose bosses have cleverly circumnavigated accusations by people like me by employing workers on 3, 4 or 7 hours a week contracts. I am demanding that alongside a living wage, workers are directly employed by the company on proper contracts, 30 plus hours if you're full-time and a minimum of 16 hours if you're part-time. I'm also campaigning against age anomalies. Blair gave a sweetener to companies when he introduced the minimum wage by having pay increments at 16, 18 and 21. This has resulted in many companies racing to hire 16 and 17-year-olds on the very basic minimum wage. A 16-year-old supermarket worker, to me, does the same job as a 40-year-old supermarket worker. If we want a living wage, that it is a living wage for all, not just those over 21. In a recent interview with a chalet cleaner at a local holiday company where I live in North Wales, the cleaner told me she doesn't care how well she does her job, as the company doesn't value her. She's employed on a 0 hours contract and she gets 6 minutes to supposedly clean the entire chalet. The company receives thousands of complaints annually, its ratings on TripAdvisor are awful, and they get constant complaints about the uncleanliness of the accommodation. However, when I questioned her, she said a living wage, living hours, and time to do the job properly would change everything. She would have the stability of paying bills on time. She would know her working hours in advance every month. She would know that they wouldn't alter, and know she would do a better job and thus receive a better standard of living. Get rid of the race to the bottom on wages and conditions. Provide a living wage and living hours, and you get a win-win situation for both employer and employee. Simple, isn't it? We must campaign to outlaw companies taking on agency staff and force them by legislation to employ workers directly. If a company needs 100 staff, 50 full-time and 50 part-time, then they have contracts to reflect this. Currently, workers on 0 hours contracts are required to be available to work at short notice, most times over a 60-hour-a-week period if you're in a supermarket. This makes planning family and childcare responsibilities highly fretful and stressful for the employee. A living wage and living hours is a basic requirement of a future socialist government with social justice at its heart. In a few minutes, we'll be asking you what you think a just welfare system means to you and ways we can campaign for it. As a features writer for the Morning Star, often my pen is my social justice sword. But by speaking at public events such as here today, my words are hopefully a useful tool too to try to push for change. Within our workplaces and certainly within our communities, we are the ambassadors for change. Ordinary people, working class people. I'm a member of Unite the Union, a community member. Unite were wise to see that by harnessing the traditional workplace members, plus carers, disabled, self-employed, retired and the unemployed in our communities, they could seek to combine both into an incredible working class campaign group versus austerity. From small acorns, bigger trees grow. We will have a mass union movement that can campaign on all levels to create the pressure for change we seek. So do yourself a favour, join the union today. Unite also recognise there are now very few working class MPs who are Labour candidates or Labour MPs in Parliament. They're putting resources into place to attract ordinary people who may wish to stand as future candidates, sending them on training courses and the like, to allow working class people to compete on the same level playing field as rich, privileged Etonians in the political arena. I recently attended, last weekend, a Future Candidates programme and hope I may be invited to effect change at the highest level. We'll wait and see. Until this government see ordinary people fighting back in numbers, in unity, they will continue to demonise us, demoralised as many of us are by fear. Movements like the People's Assembly against austerity are demonstrating in London on June the 21st. A mass people's movement and a great way to get involved in campaigning against the pain inflicted on us by the condemned. On a personal level, tweeting, Facebooking and spreading the word is equally powerful, just to get the message out on austerity for a just welfare state. Even writing a good old-fashioned letter to your local paper makes you a committed activist. This all raises awareness of what matters to working class people. A few weeks ago, I spoke to young United Labour Party members and said it was very sad they had no musical icons singing about austerity in this government, as it was in my youth with Billy Bragg and Paul Weller. I left them with this quote from one of Mr. Weller's hits. You don't have to take this crap. You don't have to sit back and relax. You can actually try changing things. Governments crack and systems fall because unity is powerful. Unity is the most powerful campaign tool of all. I urge you to campaign within your parties, campaign within your unions, your workplaces, your communities, and use your vote, your precious vote, not as a protest, but to defeat this out-of-touch, posh boy, banker-loving government and seek to effect real change, to restore our welfare state, our social security system, to the bold jewel in the social justice crown, Beveridge, Attlee and Bevan, set up in triumph all those years ago. Thank you.
Well, that was an amazing stretch of different issues, covering loads and loads of different issues. And I'm sure people have got questions for Bernadette or comments to make. Yes.
Well, Jeffrey, Sheffield Trades Council. I guess the first point I'd make is there's lots of musical opposition to the austerity. Just tends to be hip-hop more these days than guitar music. The second thing, I share your analysis of the impacts of welfare and employment reforms. I'm an academic at Sheffield University and I'm currently doing research over in Salford on the impacts of these reforms. So hearing about how cases are no longer being taken to tribunal because that £1,200 represents too great an outlay. How people, I was speaking to a widow yesterday who, after 27 years, is having to contemplate moving out of her home because of the bedroom tax. So certainly these reforms are having a massive impact. And as well as being a member of UCU, I am a member of Unite and I support the community initiative, and I know here in Sheffield and Greater Manchester, Unite Community have done great work in fighting things like the bedroom tax. But I think the weakness of the Labour Party, particularly in fighting these issues, was made evident by Alan Simpson's comments. I mean, I actually voted for Alan as MP for Nottingham Central 10 years ago, and to hear him use terms like dependency in terms of why working class people in this country may not be motivated to go for low income jobs, when we're talking about a society which international surveys places as one of the, if not the most, one of the very most unequal societies in the developed world, with the lowest levels of social mobility. We have